Welcome to Viewing and Reviewing, where I pull older movies off the shelf, watch them, and let you know if I believe they're worth your time to watch or not. I'm Bobby T, your online video store clerk, and I'll be searching through my VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray collection to find titles that I think may be interesting to review. In today's episode, I'll be reviewing 1980's Melvin and Howard, directed by Jonathan Demme, and starring Paul Le Mat, Jason Robards, and Oscar winner Mary Steenburgen. Let me read you the DVD cover. Oscar winner Jason Robards and Paul Le Mat star in this hilariously touching and possibly true story about a poor, down-and-out loser who may have once met the world's richest man. What begins as an ordinary night for Melvin ends as the most fortunate moment of his unlucky life when he picks up an eccentric hitchhiker. Melvin scoffs when the man says he's reclusive billionaire Howard Hughes, but his scorn turns to joy when he receives a letter naming him heir to Hughes's fortune. The hard part is convincing his long-suffering wife Lynda, Mary Steenburgen, his friends, and the estate lawyers in this touching slice of life satire. Now, I'd never seen this film in its entirety, although I'd started it a couple times before. I find this interesting that the film's original poster had it much closer to accurate when it called the movie Melvin in all caps, then in tiny parentheses it says, and Howard, because that's what this film is. The first 10 minutes are about a boring ride in the desert where Melvin picks up the badly injured Howard Hughes and forces him to sing a stupid song, or he'll kick him out into the Nevada desert, broken collarbone and all. Then the rest of the film is about the total loser Melvin who can't keep 2 pennies without pretending like he's making $50,000 a month. And guess what? It never really changes for the entirety of this boring film. The DVD cover tells us by the 4th paragraph that Melvin receives a letter naming him an heir to Howard Hughes' fortune. But we have to wait nearly 2 hours of boredom to actually see that letter come up. So I remember seeing the preview to this film on television when I was a kid. Howard Hughes had only died a few years earlier, and it was a real thing who was going to end up with the billionaire's empire. But I was too young to see this film in the theaters. I imagine had I paid $3 for a theater ticket, I would have been just as upset as I am that I paid $3 for this DVD in my right now. I'd forego all pretense and state this movie is simply not very good. I've seen a lot of movies from this late 70s and early 80s, and this one had Movie of the Week written all over it had it not been for its saving grace of seeing the lovely and effervescent Mary Steenburgen in her only nude scene. She won the Oscar for this film, which doesn't say much for the other actresses going up against her. I'm really sorry to say that. This may sound unusually harsh, but this film is one boring slog from beginning to end. It may be about the unlikely chance that Howard Hughes would leave $125 million to a schmuck who gave him a long, boring ride in the middle of the night. But the fact they only bookended Howard Hughes for all of 15 minutes in the film, but put his name on the title is somewhat false advertising. This is a film about a lucky dimwit who got 15 minutes of fame for pulling a fraud on the public with an infamous, unverified, and faked will, leaving him millions. And the film that tells us not only that he was undeserving of that kind of good fortune, but he was boring and stupid on top of it. I wish I could have those 2 hours of my life back. So, my overall report card of the film is going to look like this, surprise, surprise. Does it stand the test of time? Hell no. This film is a D. There is literally nothing in it that survives today other than the actors themselves. The story is old, the setting is old. Las Vegas, although cool to see it in its uninhabited and non-neon lighted glory, which would normally be a cool throwback, it looked boring as the movie. Even the movie doesn't really tell us what happens because they didn't know. It was just uninspired. So the story. Again, this is a below average story. I'll give it a C- only because it's supposedly based on a true story. Although it's supposed to be some schmo getting millions in a will when a living legend leaves it to him unknowingly, we don't even get to the will until literally the last 20 minutes of the film. So for 7/8 of the film, we barely see Howard Hughes. He's basically mentioned only once on a television story that plays in the background. And I mean, we have to watch a waste of life Melvin muck up job upon job upon job while also watching his wife leave him over and over and over while he loses money he doesn't even have or earn hand over fist for the entirety of the film. I mean, watching a loser blow his life apart for 2 hours is not a movie. It's a waste of time. And I gotta say, the game show host segments Melvin and his family idolized were downright creepy. I remember Richard Dawson being a bona fide lech on Family Feud by kissing all the girls against their will mostly. But in this film, the game show host literally fondles Mary Steenburgen on national television, and that didn't seem to faze anybody. This was all kinds of ick. This film might have been better as a 20-minute short, but it was stretched to nearly 2 hours, where most of it is listening to Paul Le Mat whining. Not my idea of Shakespeare, you know. The cast. This should be an A, since you have 2 Oscar winners and a few other folks that you recognize from other films. But this is a C, and nothing more. Unfortunately, the lead is a no-talent Paul Le Mat, whom I never understood why he got leads in films where he literally can't act, or, as proven in this film, he can't sing either. Mary Steenburgen lights up the screen every time she appears, but her character is an idiot that forgives Melvin for being a putz way too often until she finally realizes he's never going to change, so she marries the next guy that she meets. I mean, I feel like a yo-yo whenever I saw her on screen, since I never knew if she was staying or if she was going. I mean, it's not Oscar-worthy at all, but at least she wasn't Paul Le Mat. Casting Jason Robards as Howard Hughes was inspired, except that he literally isn't used in the film for anything but recognition. No acting required, just lousy singing while looking wounded in the truck. That's it. I mean, what a waste of a good talent. Cinematography. Oh boy, this film is a C, and that's being generous. It's a film of its day. There's nothing memorable about it, which can also justifiably be said about a lot of films from this era. The styles were ugly, the buildings weren't pretty, although all the President's Men seem to get it right, so that does have potential. This isn't that film though. It was the technology of the day. The photographer, however, he didn't go out of his way to make anything look interesting either. He just shot what was in front of him. So, I mean, I do that right now on my iPhone, but it doesn't make me a Hollywood cinematographer. The music. Ugh. This was less than wonderful. I'll give it a C- because I had to listen to a stupid, untalented Christmas song that the audience was force-fed in the opening sequence for pretty much the entire 10-minute opening sequence, which pissed me off. There was a working radio in the truck, but they only played that until the boneheaded Melvin had the injured and captive Howard sitting across from him, and he made him sing that song or get thrown out of the truck. I mean, then we had to listen to the same dumb song 2/3 of the way through the movie in its entirety now in front of a cast that clearly believed it was as bad as I do. But at least they were being paid to be an extra. And the rest of the soundtrack was late 70s. So, I mean, it's still grating, but it's kind of low as far as this, and that's how this film felt. So, based upon the above scores, surprise, I'm giving this a less average than average C-. It is a below average Hollywood film that should have been a made-for-TV film, and then promptly forgotten. It had all the fixins of an intriguing watch. Good cast, quirky story, a mystery that was unsolved as of this day, but it was not only an underwhelming film to watch, it was an underwhelming film to review. Yes, I'm sure folks out there really like this film. That's okay, excuse me. I'm trying to be honest here. This is not a good film, despite some really wonderful actors and what should have been an interesting story. It was too focused on beating us over the head with how Melvin was a diamond in the rough when he was simply a possibly lucky guy doing the right thing by picking up a helpless injured person, only to hold him hostage until he sang, then proceeded to screw up everyone's life he was involved with, including his own, until he supposedly redeemed in the end by perpetuating fraud on the public to try to steal millions of dollars that doesn't belong to him. Diamonds in the rough have redeeming qualities. Like in the end, Melvin was just a turd that got lucky. Until it was determined he wasn't lucky at all. He was just a lying turd to boot. I mean, not my idea of a time well spent in front of the television, I'm afraid. So, here are some better movies that are based on a true story. The The Aviator. Now this is a Howard Hughes film. This Oscar-nominated film is slick, flashy, and deserves the accolades it got, unlike Melvin and Howard. Love him or hate him, Leonardo DiCaprio was pitch perfect as the megalomaniacal Hughes in this beautifully filmed movie. It could happen to you. I'm not much of a Nicolas Cage fan, but this film is based on a true story, albeit with some creative license thrown in, about a police officer who doesn't have money for a tip. So he promises the charmingly gracious waitress, played by the charmingly cute Bridget Fonda, that if his lottery ticket wins, he'll split the win with her. And of course, they win millions, setting off a mad dash to see who has the rights to all of the money. And lastly, 29th Street. This is also based on a true story of what turns out to be the bona fide luckiest man in New York who wins the state lottery after an astounding run of luck in his personal life, only to possibly lose the money in the end when his unlucky father falls in with the wrong sort of gangsters that find out about the money and they want it too. So, well, that's it for Melvin and Howard. Thank goodness. Anyway, if you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click the like button below. If you want to keep up to date on my future reviews, please click on the subscribe button below. If you want to purchase Melvin and Howard on DVD, and I highly recommend you just rent it rather than buy this one. Or if you want to purchase any of the other titles I've mentioned before, please follow the Amazon link below. And if you have any suggestions for movies you'd like me to review, please leave a comment below. I'll see what I can do. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, be sure to help others in need, even though you may not get anything in return. Have a great week.